as I'm enjoying my meal, having like just I people watch, so I'm looking around because I try to be off my phone. And this older couple was sitting by me and they look at me and they're like, you know, like, how is everything? And I'm like, oh my God, it's so good. And the husband or her partner, he's like, are you waiting for someone? And I said, no, it's just me. And he goes, oh, so you're here alone? And the woman, his wife, um, I'm pretty sure they were married. They were like the cute little old couple. And she's like, she's not alone. She's like, honey, you're just free. And
Ooh.
I was like, oh my God, you're right.
Yeah, so thank you so much for being here with me today, Victoria. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne.
So I'm super excited to get into your work and what you do, especially around the topics of self-romancing and setting boundaries on dates. That's super juicy, interesting subject. But before we get into that, I just want to ask you, what is the worst date you've ever been on?
All right. I'm laughing now. I was not laughing when it happened. I was on Tinder. I matched with a man. There was like this attraction. I was drawn to him. He appeared to be confident, secure in his job, and we exchanged numbers, and I appreciated the way he communicated with me. And finally, he's like, "Yep, we're gonna meet in DC." So I drive up there, and we agreed that we would meet at a coffee shop, and the date was going to an art museum, drinking wine, and then dinner. And I was like, wow, that sounds great. I love it. So I go to the coffee shop. I can't find him.
Oh.
I'm looking for this like broad-shouldered man with like slacks and a shirt. And I'm like, where is this guy? I was slightly catfished. And the confident energy that was coming through our conversations was not met in person. And I I was like, okay, nope, this is fine. This is the first date. It's always like the nerves, like we'll just keep going. But you know how initially you're gonna know intuitionally, like, no. So we go to the art museum. It's very awkward conversations, and they're not even like genuinely interested. It's more like trivia. I felt like I was being not persecuted, but interrogated.
Mhm.
And we get to the cafe to order the wine, and I'm like, okay, like this will be fine. He looks at me and he goes, "You look like you could use a glass of Sauvignon Blanc," which is a white wine. And I
Mm.
look at him and I said, "No, thank you. I would like a glass of Cab Sauv or Malbec, something red and like darker, heavier, medium bodied." And he just kind of looks at me with this confused look, proceeds to turn around and goes, "Two glasses of Sauvignon Blanc." And
Wow.
I'm like, first of all, did you not hear me and not respect what I just answered? It's one thing for I like a man to take initiative and charge, but the fact that you completely just did not. So he hands me this glass. We go sit down, and I'm like, I thought we were walking around to look at art. And he continues with these questions. Eventually, we discover in these questions, like, well, what do you look for in a man? What do you look for in a woman? Blah, blah, blah. And when I'm describing him, I even begin to realize that he's not checking any of my boxes. And he's like, wow, I'm none of those things. And that's okay, because there's a first time for everything, right? And I'm like, oh my God. And then he tries to like hold my hand, and I tell him, no, thank you. I like pull my hand back. And I feel that I'm intimidating him. I'm having a hard time looking at him and smiling genuinely because I'm like, I'm not anywhere anymore. And then I sit there and I think to myself, I'm like, we're supposed to have dinner. I don't think I'll make it. And
Mhm.
So we get to the end because the museum's closing, and he's like, "All right, so I'm thinking this place for dinner." And I look at him and I said, "You know what? This is not working for me. I would really appreciate if you could take me back to my car." In the moment, I swear to you, like that was probably in the early, like in my early stages of discovering how I could just communicate, even if it's like I know there's a possibility that he's not gonna like what I have to say. I need to voice my truth because I respect like quality time is one of my love languages, and I respect my time too much. And I don't like the idea that he has hopes that it's going to go really well. I don't know what his intentions are, but I was already physically at a point where I could not be there. And it was a test to see if I could just stick to my boundaries, and I did. And that is my worst Tinder date.
Awesome. I mean, not awesome, but thank you for sharing. And I feel like with these worst dates, what's like a common denominator is like that initial, that gut feeling
Yes.
that gets ignored.
I feel like um because after that, like and this is where it kind of like connects. There have been other dates after where I have been able to trust the gut initially. And especially with when it comes to human relationships, it's the attraction and the energy. And I'm at a point in my life now where it's like, you know, you can have anyone you want. I do have like, I have, you know, I know what I like and I know what I desire and I know what turns me on. So if none of that is catching my attention and it's more of like a I can't think of the word. Oh my God. I no longer date a man for the convenience of it, you know?
Mm,
If I feel resistance, if my entire being is like swelling up, like then I need to instinctively trust that immediately. And it's okay to say, you know what, this isn't working. And so in other instances where I've had dates, I met someone, went to a restaurant, which was a lot closer to me, and they drove down. And I was like, it was really awkward conversations because, like, it was that, like you said, the gap in talk. Because to me, it was like, I don't think we're genuinely interested in each other at all. So I think that we should call this a night. And that was like maybe 20, 30 minutes in. And I now know that it's okay to do that because sometimes the guy feels the same way. Communication. Oh my God, communication.
mm-hmm.
Um, there's a quote that's like, communication is lubrication. Like, let's talk. Be honest with me.
Yes.
Tell me the truth because you deserve to be like your time. I honor and respect your time as I respect mine. So
Mm.
if you desire to be elsewhere, if you're not fully in this with me right now, then please like state it and excuse yourself. If this isn't a like if this is not a hell yes, it's a no. If there's any resistance,
Yes.
it's like pass.
Mm-hmm.
You're no longer a convenience. You are an investment, a destination, a journey.
I imagine it was quite the journey, the transformation to get from the point of just kind of not being able to voice your discomfort to this point now where you are just clearly setting these boundaries. You know what you want, you know what feels good, you know when you're compatible with someone, and you're now working with women to educate and empower them to express themselves. So, can you tell me a little bit more about your journey? Like, when did this journey start for you? What was it? Usually starts with like a low point. So when did the journey start for you?
It actually started, it's pretty fresh at this time. So a year ago, which is insane. um, so about a year ago, I was in a difficult, pivotal moment of my life. At the time, I was married. I had a house, dogs, a few jobs, and a partner. And I felt very disconnected. I felt like my health was getting worse. I was not a fan of the behaviors I was doing. Like I was literally going out to distract myself
Hmm.
from the emptiness I was feeling. I was sitting in my bathroom and I was just sobbing. I felt so alone. I remember sitting there thinking to myself how I kept like envisioning a lifestyle where I could be free and feel safe and trusting and worthy because I kept looking for it outside of myself. Like, I've done everything, but why does it not feel enough? And I don't know like where to go from here. And out of nowhere, it was like this crossroads. I was standing in front of a crossroads and it was like, if we go left, you're going to be back here. You know it. I know it. Like, and that's fine because you're choosing to stay consistent and comfortable for these people. If you go right, there is a life, here. And I could feel the freedom, the joy. I could hear laughter, and it felt just juicy and ready for me to bite. And it was like, if you go right, that means you're getting ready to lose everything you thought you needed, which was a divorce. And I went right. And the moment my subconscious made that decision, it had already been made like months ago. It was just starting. I was in that mourning process. I was already mourning the loss without even realizing it. And so at that moment, I decided, I said, I can do this. I'm going to do this. And it was the first time I I stood up for myself. I I stood up and chose me, and I in that moment I realized I got me. I am enough for me. So during that process of moving here and this healing and getting to know this new woman and like who do I desire to be now? What do I want to do? And I learned that I had a lot of because with divorce, your identity's gone. Everything I thought I was supposed to be, everything who I thought, went with it. And so now I'm left with this, this me. And I did a lot of inner reflection. Like I felt guilt, I felt shame, I was angry. I realized that I had a lot of limiting beliefs around sex. I realized that I had tried so hard to make him and his pleasure a priority, never really realizing that I had the option for my own. And I discovered that, at a young age, my vision of what sex was supposed to look like in relationships was not aligned with what I deeply desired,
Hmm.
you know. And so I started dating myself and I healed that. I let go of those limiting beliefs that sex was not just a one-sided thing. It's not just um women are, objects and blah, blah, blah. I went from being super self-conscious about showing up to, you know, taking my own selfies, getting a boudoir shoot. I adore women. Like I always compliment them and I'm like, "Oh my God, she's so beautiful." And I praise them and I started treating myself with the utmost respect with what I had wanted in my relationship. And when I realized I could do that for myself, it completely just blew my mind. I was like, wow, this whole time I was hoping and waiting and pushing and trying to change this other person when I really needed to just change myself and make that hard decision to start over. And with letting those beliefs go, discovering self-pleasure, which unlocks a whole nother like power in a woman, I was like, I need to share this. When I got finally ready to jump into dating, which was like, I haven't dated in years. It was actually one of my girlfriends. She helped me because I'm an extrovert. So I love going out and meeting people
Mhm.
organically, and it just wasn't working. So my girlfriend's like, just download Tinder, just try it. And so I made a profile and I can't tell you. I've got great stories. And I had I've also had some of the like really the most fun. I had some of the greatest lovers and when I like and even in the moment and when I think about it now, I'm like I was at a point then like even in my body, I felt safe. I was able
Mm.
to communicate my needs. I was treated to a standard that I had never seen before, but I had secretly desired for so long. And it was like,
Wow.
this is available. This is
Mm.
available to me.
And did
These
you
men,
notice?
go ahead.
Mhm. Did you notice that right from the start? Like when you downloaded Tinder, or did it take a while? Like, how did you get to this point where you were being met with such a high standard and you got to meet these really good men that, yeah, fulfilled you in some way?
It happened quick, to be honest. One of the first guys I actually met with, like my first like quote date,
Mhm.
blew me out of the water.
Wow.
Like he was hot, he was attentive, and he I remember feeling like this is too good, you know? And I remember like just being with him and like at one point he was cooking dinner and I was like, "Yeah, let me help." He's like, "No." He's like, "Have a seat. I'm gonna get you a glass of wine and I just want you to keep looking beautiful and put on whatever you want to watch and I'm gonna cook." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? What is this?" I had been in my masculine for so long, I didn't know what it was like to be with someone to allow me to be in my feminine. So now
Mhm.
that is something I desire in dating, partnerships,
Yes.
anything like that.
For women that have been in their masculine, I can identify with that as well. To tap into the feminine and let go, there has to be that element of safety with a person. So
Mhm.
you were attracting partners that felt safe. What do you think the key was to that?
I think the key to attract a partner where I felt safe was having the confidence in myself to start dating
Mhm.
and also trusting myself to know um I want to say it's because there's fear.
Mhm.
There's fear in not just dating, but even like when you like want to do something new, you have to trust yourself that, is this sustainable? Is it ecological? Is this, are you jumping off a bridge or are you going to a new coffee shop? I think being able to attract a partner where you felt safe is because you trusted yourself. You learned to trust.
Mhm.
Like, you don't go out I didn't ask my girlfriend, like, should I go out with this guy?" No, I did that on my own.
Mm.
And
Yes.
that builds that confidence, and
Yes.
we need that.
Yeah, definitely. So often we go to others to get our validation, and it can be like, well, I'm just getting support from my girlfriend. But is it support, or is it just not trusting yourself and your own ability to make a decision? So, in terms of building that trust for other women that might not have that yet, that don't trust themselves, what would you recommend as like kind of like a first step to kind of build that up so they can be kind of, show up online or in the dating world?
So, I would say for the women who are not feeling comfortable or not trusting to receive, to start that initiation of self-love. I want you to start learning more about like what it is you love about yourself and what it is you desire, and then see what comes up, whether it's through journaling, Pinterest boards, or if you're sitting there at a coffee shop or at a bar and you see like it's on like there's these TikTok videos where it's like you see a couple and you're very envious, you know? Well, what is it about that you're envious of? Is it because that's something you want, but you feel that you don't deserve? And then what's underneath that? And that's something I do with my clients is like we go deeper and deeper into this, this layering of, there's these beliefs that you have that you feel unworthy of receiving. Because I felt unworthy of receiving pleasure myself because my idea of like a lifestyle was everyone around me has to be happy or I'm not doing enough. And
Mhm.
when I got to the point where everyone was pleased, but I was not, I didn't know how to comprehend that. So
Mhm.
it took a dark fall to realize that, wait a minute, I
Yeah.
do matter. My needs do matter. My feelings are valid. So it's
Mhm.
initiating yourself into that self-loving practice of I am worthy of receiving this. And it's okay to desire something that, Oh, I could never do that. I could never have that. It's like, okay, well, why not you? All comes back to the way you value yourself.
Mm-hmm. And what you just said, just it brought up so much stuff for me. So what you mentioned about the like if you're out and you notice couples that you're envious of, I would have this in the relationship. I would notice that we'd be out somewhere and I would notice another couple and I'd be like, hmm. And it was always the when I noticed a couple was like touchy-feely, hugging, or like the man would stand behind and like hug the woman, or there was just physical touch. Like I'm like you, so it's quality time and physical touch. So they were out together and they were touching each other and I was like, "Ah, please." And then my partner just that was not his love language. So I was always seeking that. But the relationship I attracted was not that at all. I used to watch like oh, I still do, like, watching Instagram Reels, and there's lots of videos with, like, proposals or, like so have you seen these videos of men that are like, the woman is on her period, and these men are, like, cooking things and, like, even as I'm telling you, I'm like, they're, like, cooking things and, like, making a tray of, like, chocolate, and then they buy them their pads. So, a part of me was, like, repulsed, but then I tuned in, and I was like, "That's what I want." I'm not
Mm,
repulsed by it. I think I can't have it. So I'm like, this is all fake. This isn't real. And same with like these romantic gestures. I always pretended that I didn't like it at all, that it was cringy. No, that's what I desire. And there's still a part of me that believes that she can't get that.
mm.
So yeah, it's about really unpacking the stuff. Yeah, like what do you really want, but you actually don't feel you deserve it.
I feel you. I hear you so much. Like that was me. My girlfriend's like, let's watch a chick flick. I was like, ew, no, I don't want to watch that. Because like I secretly craved and desired romance. A year ago, I would tell you I'm a hopeless romantic. Now I tell people I'm a hopeful romantic because
Mm.
I romance myself now. Like I take myself out to dinner. I went to a jazz thing last weekend. I'm gonna go to a hockey game this weekend. Like just doing that and indulging myself, dressing up and wooing this woman is how I'm going to be able to draw in that partner. And then when I had these dates, like I went to some really nice restaurants. I went to this really nice Airbnb and like the way I was able to surrender, I was like, but before I would be like, ugh, the romance is so corny.
Yes. You know what? For years, I avoided watching The Notebook. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna watch that. So literally, I watched The Notebook about 3 nights ago for the first time with my girlfriend, and it's like the best movie ever. And same thing. Like I think I avoided it because that's what I want. So now I
Mm,
just embraced it. I was like, yes, this love is like this is good love. So when you talk about that's interesting. So you're pretty much like manifesting that kind of love, that kind of romance, that kind of high value man partner by mirroring almost what you want that partner to do. So you're taking yourself out to these fancy restaurants, to like a beautiful Airbnb, doing fun things. So that yeah, that makes so much sense. So you go to these places, you do this on your own by yourself.
Before I was on the apps, I was doing these things, like taking myself out on these dates. And then I recently took a break from the dating apps because I was like, I can't, like, not right now, because they can be very energy draining.
Mhm.
And so when I did that, I remembered, I was like, oh, that's right. Like Miley Cyrus said, I can buy myself the flowers and I can take myself dancing. And I started doing those things again. And I realized how much like when I'm able to bring myself these things, the things that I desire to do, again, I'm emitting from this place, this frequency of love and pleasure that it just kind of spreads out. So when you're like in this role of a woman who's like, I'm a high value woman, I deserve this, I deserve this, you're going to attract the man who desires you, whether or not he is the man for you is a whole nother story because you can have couple guys come out of the woodworks and be like, hey, girl, just because he says hey, does that mean you have to have him? Let me tell you that right now. However, let's say these guys are coming, through, or you get back on the dating apps and you do attract the man who's like, oh, I'd love to take you to this restaurant or let's go see this show because it was his idea or he finds this out about you and he's taking initiative and you're able to receive that because you've given it to yourself, just like with self-love practices, like you're able to surrender your body in like during sex and really enjoy the buildup of orgasm because you're able to
Mm.
trust because you trust your body and you're just in complete bliss. Like it's glorious.
Amazing. Yes. I just want to go back to the self-romancing part and like treating yourself and doing these things. Cause I know even for myself, if I think about like taking myself out for dinner, like sure, I'll order me a pizza and I'll get some takeout, but to sit down in a restaurant by myself, that is a little bit intimidating still. How was like, what was the first time you took yourself out on a date? Like, what did that look like? And how did you feel and how did it go?
I love this story. The first time I took myself out was before I was even on the apps. I was just I think I was craving intimacy. I was craving romance. And I was sitting there and I realized I was thinking about where I live. I was thinking about the clothes I had, and I said, "Oh, I could just I could do it." And I remember getting dressed. I wore this really cute sweater dress. I got my hair up, my earrings, and I drive over there to the nicest restaurant in town. And I remember walking in feeling so awkward. Like my confidence was like, and at the same time, I was like, I need to put myself in these situations because at the end of the day, I don't want to go to sleep and be like, I really wish I would have tried. I really wish I would have done X, Y, and Z. So I go up to this restaurant. I look at the menu and I'm treating I'm being treated so well and the servers are so sweet to me. I order my food and a glass of wine, red wine to be exact, not Sauvignon Blanc. And I remember eating this meal because it was so good. Have you seen the movie When Harry Met Sally when she's having the orgasm at the table? So the food was so good. I remember eating it and just like my eyes rolled in the back of my head. It tasted so good, and all I could think about was like just how good it felt to be here in that moment. And then I finally felt brave and proud of myself for putting myself in this situation. And as I'm enjoying my meal, having like just I people watch, so I'm looking around because I try to be off my phone
Mhm.
just to kind of check out. And this older couple was sitting by me and they look at me and they're like, you know, like, how is everything? And I'm like, oh my God, it's so good. And the husband or her partner, he's like, are you waiting for someone? And I said, no, it's just me. And he goes, oh, so you're here alone. And the woman, his wife, um, I'm pretty sure they were married. They were like the cute little old couple. And she's like, she's not alone. She's like, honey, you're just free. And
Ooh.
I was like, oh my God, you're right. You're so right. And I just sat there and I was like, oh my God, she's right. You're never alone. And I wasn't. Like there were people all around me. Ever since they said that to me, I've been able to go out even more on my own and just give myself that experience of like this this whole experience tastes good. I'm a whole like ladies, you are a whole you're a five-course meal, you know what I mean? You're not just the apps, you're not just the salad, you are all of it with the champagne. Like making those experiences for yourself count. And it gets easier and easier.
So I want to know from all the work you've done, what has been your best date so far?
Oh man. Oof. I,
I
oh man.
want to know, like, as I asked you and you're thinking, I'm like, I want to know what movie is playing, like, as you're going through them.
Going through my files. It's a tie. It's the same person, but two different times. The one time we took that trip to the Airbnb.
Hmm.
I like that in itself, the whole weekend was like a big date, but just the way I felt that entire time, I felt like a queen. And he was so sweet, so handsome. He had the most beautiful eyes. And he spoke in Italian too. He
Bonus.
moved. He moved. Um, but it was also like we were able to have these great conversations. Like there was so many great things about it. I would say the runner up would probably be um I was I went to Paris. I took myself to Paris. I literally like I met a local there. He was French and when I tell you like it was one of those movie things where I walk by and we look at each other and then do the whole turnaround thing. I eventually go to his restaurant. He worked at a restaurant. Then we end up having drinks and then dinner. And he taught me to slow down and really appreciate things. And
Mm,
um, I think what I loved about that was he was so interested in like, tell me more. And I wasn't used to like talking so much.
mm,
And like, the fact that he knew the language and would order for me, and then he was such a gentleman, and oh my God, like that's my runner up. Top two.
wow, those are beautiful, beautiful dates.
I think what we get wrong about dating is like if you're not with a partner, then there must be something wrong with me. No, there isn't. Sometimes we think that they're the only person, and that's not true either. Like
Mm,
the thing where it's like, he's not worth crying over, and you're allowed to experience these emotions. Just don't let them define who you really are and your worth, because there are amazing guys out there who will be so lucky to be in your presence, to be in your energy, to worship you. Um, Bad dates happen, but then there are really great dates. And just because it went wrong does not mean you're unlovable or you're undateable. That's completely false. If a man doesn't respect my worthiness, I put my boundaries up and they weren't respected. So now they're not here, you know? That doesn't make me unworthy. That just makes me strong. Because
mm-hmm,
you women need to respect themselves enough to not settle for less than they deserve. Because it's so easy to say yes because it's shiny. It's so easy to be say yes because he says you're pretty. But babe, like no, like you're not only gorgeous, but you're a queen. Like he needs to lay it all out for you, and you need to lay it all out and feel it for yourself too.
mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, and you're allowed to take time off, you know. Um,
That's a great
when I
point.
yeah, because you feel like we feel obligated and pressured to be with someone. Like
Mm-hmm,
my family was surprised that I like this whole like the divorce happened. And so I'm living on my own when they were my age, they were married with children. So there's this stigmatism between like you shouldn't be on your own. And it's like, actually, yes, I can.
mm-hmm.
Yes, you're allowed to. So there's that pressure of I have to go find someone
Yes.
when in reality, you just have to find yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're ready, go put yourself out there, have some fun. You'll get hurt, and that's okay. And then if you need to take a break from it, that means nothing about you. That just means that you deserve some time for yourself. And even if
Mm-hmm.
you're dating, make sure you date yourself to remember, like, yeah, that's right. I am a high value woman. And
Yes.
you're gonna meet guys who will, I haven't seen anything too crazy. I have had men drive over an hour just to come see me. And then I've had men who live less than that tell me that I'm too far away. But like, "Hmm." The
Yeah.
right people will put in the time for you as long as you've done
Mhm.
it yourself.
Yes. So kind of taking us out today, if you could give the women that are listening just one piece of advice, one single piece of advice, what would that be?
Invest in yourself, treat yourself, worship yourself first. Like learn to love this woman. And then when you do, you're going to attract in these kinds of relationships. Like what you're projecting for yourself is what you're going to receive from others.
Mhm. And finally, last question for you. What are you dancing to right now?
Okay, so um there's a song. I'm laughing because it's hilarious. But every time I hear it's it's called Mrs. Nasty by
Oh,
Megan Thee Stallion. Megan the Stallion, her whole vibe is like big queen energy. I would say every time that song comes on, I remind myself, like, yeah, I get
nice.
so up for myself.
So where can women that are interested in your story, which will be everyone, where can we find you? Where can we find out more about you, work with you, etc.?
Yes, I'm on Instagram at Victoria underscore Icenhower, and that's ICE, N as in Nancy, HOWER. I'm also on Facebook with Victoria Icenhower Lotus Lifestyle. And then you can email me, victoria.lotuslifestyle@gmail.com. Instagram and Facebook have the links to that go to my baby website. It's a small one, but that's got all of my offerings and then my contacts.
And I'll be sure to list or put the links in the show notes as well. So if anyone's interested, just check the show notes of this episode. It's been such a treat talking with you today. I would love to do it again in the future. And just thank you so much for being here and sharing your story and your work with us.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne. I had such a good time, like going down memory lane. It was nice to be in your space. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, thank you.